anything else today?
It doesn't feel like we're going to do anything else today. Continue to explore more so depth options right now. Just feels like where the market's at this time in terms of free agency. Like goalie, basically every position. Probably look for some help in net in Rockford, some forwards, and exploring some defense options as well. So, but no, I don't think there's anything going to be happening today.
Is it a particularly tough market to make moves this time around?
It definitely was. Even like whether it be free agency or trade, it just felt like it was pretty stagnant. Just kind of stalled. I don't know if that'll lend itself to more of a drawn out market over the course of the summer, as just maybe things are more staged than they have been in the past, where it felt much more kind of immediate around the draft and free agency. A lot more movement maybe happened, but we'll kind of see how that plays out. But as we sit here now, I feel pretty happy about the obviously the veterans we've got, but also just the opportunity for competition amongst our young players that we'll have. If things were to stay the same, of course, we're going to continue to explore options out there. And in terms of the NHL team, it's probably more so, trade options. I don't know how much will be available to us, but it's always something we're exploring and looking into. So, but feels like we're in a pretty good spot, including, trading for Sam this morning, who we know quite well and understand his versatility and what he brings to a lineup, and what his strengths are, and how he can help out the bottom part of our lineup. So happy to bring him back and bring another kind of veteran that we understand back into the fold. And so we'll kind of see how the rest of the week or the summer plays out. Still a long time before training camp, and we've got some of our own restricted guys to get done as well. So we'll work on that and continue to evaluate the market.
What are your expectations in that when you've Comesso and Davidson sort of qualified, but with Brossois, and if you potentially play in Rockford or someone of those guys play in Rockford, what with having, I guess, any update on Brossois too?
Yeah, not a ton. I honestly, not because there isn't one, just I haven't really pushed all that hard yet. I think we know that we're going to bring back Sodi. We qualified him. We're trying to get a deal done there. No reason to believe why we wouldn't get something done with Arvid. I think it's, again, if we have numbers and hopefully LB's healthy and ready to go in training camp, we can have a competition there and see where that goes. But I think we'll still look to solidify things down in Rockford, and a couple different ways you can go with it, whether you go more of a prospect type or veteran with Drew. We'll kind of figure that out, but I think Drew's done enough and has enough body of work that we can trust him to carry the mail down there and really take the net and run with it and take on a really good workload to further his development. So I feel very confident and happy with our goaltending situation right now. Obviously Spencer coming in and continuing to understand our system and under a new coaching staff, some new defensive systems that he'll be playing within. And so I think that'll be great for him, continue to get comfortable here. Arvid, I think we can build on his season last year. And then, I think Drew is trending in a really good direction, and then we'll see how LB is and then what else we do in Rockford, over the next little while. So I feel very happy and confident with where the goaltending situation's at.
The quiet free agency today, is that a combination of the thin market, but also wanting to have those spots available for the younger players to just take on roles?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of a lot of things. It's a combination of feeling confident that our young players are ready. We do have enough of them that there will be a competition there. They're not all going to jump in, but we do think that a number of them can run and grab spots. Combined with some of the veterans we've got already in the system, trading for Burakovsky. I think Lafferty was more so, I think a reaction to the market where we can get someone we know, a little shorter term, a little more flexibility there. And then, just, didn't want to put any players in front of some of the young guys that we do think are ready. Now, we we have enough young players that there aren't enough spots for all of them to play. So there will be battles there, and they'll keep each other accountable, keep each other honest on earning spots here in the NHL. But we do feel that a couple of them are ready to really take a role and run with it and be a positive impact on the team. So it's a little bit of combination of everything you mentioned: market, situation, players being ready, veterans already in place. And so it was, that's probably, it all goes into the mix on why it's a little quieter today.
You've got a fairly deep list of RFAs next year. Have you started to have conversations with whether Bedard, Nazar, Spencer Knight, or whomever else?
Yeah, we have had some conversations with a couple of those players. Nothing imminent. I think there's the new salary cap marketplace, I think, is going to stall some of that. It's going to make some of these a little more drawn out than maybe they would have been in the past on a more flat cap. But yeah, we've started, and we'll see if something gets done. Again, it's a kind of a new world that we've walked into this summer with the cap and where it's going, and new CBA. Lots of unanswered questions, I think, still just systematically within the NHL that we're trying to navigate. Which these things are difficult to get done at the best of times, but then when you toss in a little uncertainty with how some of these structure rules, anything like that, how that can impact things, is just, I think it'll delay things a little bit, but happy with how conversations have gone so far.
There's been a lot of talk about needing to get a player to help Connor Bedard. Where do you feel like that type of player could come from? Is it internal or from outside the organization?
Well, you're always looking for that type of player. You're always looking for good players, in the marketplace. They just come up very seldomly, and when you do, you act aggressively. And I feel we've reacted accordingly. Again, it doesn't always work out, and so you move on. But having said that, if we look internally, I think there's a number of players that are coming that can fill those roles. That doesn't mean you don't proactively look out in the marketplace. It's just, they're so few and far between when they are available. But so you have to be very aggressive when they do, and it doesn't always work out that way. But I think the most sure way of finding those players is developing them yourself, and so that's what we'll do until a new opportunity arises. So.
Jack Pridham just told us he's decommitted from Boston University. He's going to stick with Kitchener. How much clarity do you have on kind of what the contract guidelines will be and what the framework between CHL, NCAA, and what that looks like moving forward with prospects? Yeah,
we don't have a ton right now. Once we get that, I think there's still some steps that have to occur before we get a more tangible document, guidelines and path forward on that kind of thing. So we don't have too much. We're kind of in hand in glove with Jack and his process and what he's been going through the last little while in terms of making a decision where he wants to play next year. My position on those is I like to allow our prospects to own their development path. I think that's when there's ownership in a location or in a situation that's decided on, by the player with input from all the different, inputs that they want to have in their decision-making process, us included. I think when the player decides, that's when they're most invested in their development situation, rather than us saying, go here, and then their heart's not really in it. And, I'd rather them be owning their own career and own development in terms of where they're playing. And I think Jack was quite thorough in his process and ending up with where he ended up. And so we're fully supportive of that and excited for, what's to come and, how that, how we navigate what rights and contract it's a discussion for another day, but no concerns at all on his path forward.
Were you surprised that Sasha decided to transfer from North Dakota to Boston University?
I don't know. Whenever I'm not really surprised with that. It just seems more commonplace nowadays. And then they had a coaching changeover. So when normally when you commit to a program, it's a lot of it has to do with a head coach and a certain situation and discussions that take place. And then when you remove that, I guess that throws uncertainty in the situation. So not all that, shocked by it or anything. And certainly, again, no cause for concern. We think BU is a great program, and we've had great success with our prospects there. And so I think he landed in a good spot. North Dakota is also a great spot. So, I think it would have been a good situation whether he stayed or he ended up in BU. So it's all good on our end.
Could you run through just like the qualifiers, like why you decided not to qualify Khrushchev and why you decided to qualify the three that you did?
So I think Arvid had a nice bounce back season. I think we've seen some nice progression from him and commitment to his craft after a tough year 2 years ago. Bounced back, put in a lot of work, showed some nice progress, and wanted to continue that progress and that relationship moving forward with Arvid. So that was the basis for that decision. Then Wyatt and Louis, they're still young players earlier in their career where we see promise and very viable path to meaningful NHL roles this year. So we wanted to keep them around. Phil, Khrushchev, had a little bit of a tough year, and just the probably a lack of defined role with us moving forward, as well as a little bit of a question on where that potential ARB could have come out. I think it was probably better for all that he kind of finds a new path and new opportunity somewhere else to continue to grow in his NHL career. And then the other players, just kind of business decisions. We're going to look to fill those spots with some different players.
You mentioned the RFAs and specifically with Connor. Has he made any indication to you as far as he'd like to get something done sooner rather than later, or is he fine just taking the time that's necessary and however long it takes here with that?
I probably don't want to get too far into it, but we are talking, and so I think that's an indicator of an openness to discuss. And I think he made his thoughts very clear at the end of the season, and then subsequently in interviews about he's committed to Chicago and wants to be here long term, and we obviously want him here long term. So there's mutual agreement there, obviously, and so we'll see. But if we're able to get something done, that would be fantastic. But if we don't, I think it's probably more so out of the uncertainty around how the league and the system is going to be growing or impacted moving forward than anything, player and team related. So,
if the off season is done, I guess where do you see the rebuild being after another draft class and these signings and projecting prospects in that type of place, and I guess year 4 going into how do you bigger picture?
Yeah, I think we're heading into a new stage where we're starting to see, and we're leaving open spots in the NHL for some of these young players that we have drafted and have developed to enter the NHL and start making up a larger or large, depending on the point of the year, portion of the roster. And so I think we're seeing them graduate. We've seen some of them graduate to pro. Now we're going to see some of them graduate into the NHL and NHL full time. And so I think that's a meaningful step from not having any of them here, or just a very small subset of our drafted prospects here over the last couple of years, to where we're starting to see them almost take over this team a little bit and take over that locker room to some extent. We still have a veteran-laden roster, but there are there's going to be a much larger contingent of young players that could be here for a very long time, breaking camp with us this year. And so I think that's really exciting. I think that's a display of progress on where we've been in the past. It's a different look for this team, and I think it's an eye to where we're headed. And I think it's just an exciting step that we've taken that we haven't necessarily been able to reasonably expect prior to this season.
Kind of a random question, but what did you see from John Mustard at Providence this year?
Yeah, he had a really good season for a freshman. You know, I think he was. We've made so many picks lately, and so many picks high in the first round, that some of these players don't necessarily get the shine that they deserve. And I think John's one of those guys that he probably should get a little more love than he's getting. You know, putting up the points that he did and having the season that he did in Hockey East, which is a really good league within the NCAA. That's a really impressive season for a freshman at his age, and stepping right out of the USHL into the NCAA, and in a program like Providence to you know, put up the points he did was really impressive, really exciting for us. And you know, again, him and a number of the other guys from the last draft class, when they walk in for our opening meeting there at development camp, you can just see they're bigger, they're stronger, and you can see why, you know, he probably did acclimate to college hockey as quickly as he did. He was physically ready to do it, and obviously he's got some pace and some game to his profile. And so, no, it was a really exciting year for him and for us, and just another player we're really excited about.